Welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we cut through the bullshit
Greggy,
so we can get naked.
you can't say that.
Why not? How would you say it then?
Well, maybe more like, welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we undress emotionally so we can undress physically.
That's exactly what I said. Not sure what the problem is. Welcome to episode number
75.
Hey, we have something special today that we've never done before. We have a double date with us today.
Yay. Welcome to our double date.
Welcome to our double date.
Thanks.
We are so grateful for this couple coming on and being with us. We got to meet Kendra early on in Amy's career as a life coach. She lives here close by us and became good friends. And she started her life coaching business the same time that we did. Similar, a little bit before. I guess she was a trailblazer, huh?
She was the one that said, go for it.
Yeah, she told Amy to go for it. In fact, we were chatting the other day, and there was a bunch of stuff that we do, and Amy came up saying, well, Kendra told me to do that, and Kendra go to that. So I didn't know how much we owed her, but I guess we owe her a lot. So we're glad that she's joining us today.
So we're super excited to have Dr. Adrian Harvey and Kendra Harvey here with us. Kendra has a coaching business called It Gets Better Now, and she is supporting physician spouses. So she has a podcast with Katie called Supporting Physician Spouses.
It's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful.
It
Say that
is.
10 times fast.
But it's very clear.
Yeah, you know what you're talking about. That's for
And
sure.
very, very necessary, right?
Definitely.
Because when you have a physician spouse, or when you have some type of career or maybe health demand or something that changes the dynamics of a marriage, there's definitely things to be addressed there, right?
It's brought up lots of things. A great playground for self-development.
There you go. That's one way of putting it.
So just for a little bit, tell us just a little bit about what brought you to coaching, Kendra, and also maybe, Adrian, what brought you to being a physician, and maybe what that looked like in the beginning of your marriage.
Sure.
I guess those do kind of intersect. We've been married for 22 years now. We married when he was in medical school. And I remember at the time feeling quite lucky because, that was the golden ticket, right? If you marry a doctor or you marry somebody who's a high earner, your life is going to be so much easier. Like, it's just going to be, daisies and roses and rainbows all the time. And that, of course, was very immature and naive of me. But I've found that a lot of people go into it that way, where we have this belief that something outside of us is actually going to solve our problems. And so he'll tell a little bit more about his path in medicine, but he picked the probably longest one that you can pick. And so we were in, I would say, poverty, but we were
Purgatory?
yeah, it was purgatory for a really long time. Medical students live on student loans. Residents get paid McDonald's wages. And that went on for a big portion of our life. And as we had 4 kids during that time, we would go on to have a 5th one later. But in our community, we'd always been told, like, just hang on, it's going to get better. Hang on, it's going to get better. Like, you just have to get through this really difficult part. And then we finally did get through the difficult part. And I remember thinking, I'm not sure that this was worth it. Like, this is not what it was cracked up to be. Like, something is not right here. And so I had stumbled upon a mentor of mine, Jody Moore, and I was listening to her podcast and some of the concepts that she was talking about, and that really resonated with me. At this time, I think I was pregnant with our 5th child, or had just had our 5th child. And I was being presented with concepts and ideas that I had never considered before. And one of those being that the things that I think might not be right. Like, I might be fooling myself or gaslighting myself, and that might be contributing to the problem. And that was partially true. And I think that was able to get me to a certain point. And then I reached another. It was like, well, there has to be something more than just that, because, there are things that we can control within our environment, but there's things that are outside of our environment that really do impact the relationship and our family. And those are also things that are big that have to be dealt with. So long story short, I trained to become a coach. I've been certified in a couple of different programs, and I've just found that those tools for helping me become who I need to be so I can not only do this life, but so I can be a good mother, so I can be a good partner, so I can show up in the world as an individual and not Dr. Harvey's wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
thus
I
the
guess-
title of your business, It Gets Better Now.
Yeah.
Very, very apropos.
Yes.
Go ahead,
And my
sorry.
part of that, I think, I met Kendra, and she was just somebody that stood out. The term "you marry up" is certainly true. And she was obviously, there's a lot to her that I just found attractive, still do. And not only that, but that's deepened. This is not about her, but she is just an amazing person. And I've come to know that. And the reason that I did that was, or how I've done that is, when we got married, my idea of marriage was, you find somebody that you like, you're attracted to, somebody that laughs at your jokes, which took a lot for me, but she did. And then, you just help each other be true and help each other and be true and do all the right things. And that's a good marriage, comparing it to all the other people who kind of fail just because of, big problems. But I think, and for a long time in my career, first in even medical school and then residency, Kendra will tell you this, she is devoted, and her idea of her role was to support me and shelter me from some of the things, or a lot of things that happened in the household and in our family, and more importantly, in her heart and her mind, that I just didn't have an idea was going on until we were well into my career. I think it was the first time that really kind of the key moment was about 8 years ago, and she and I were driving, and she said, I think there's things that we need to talk about and work on. And it just shocked me.
That's
Just
never a good
shocked.
moment. Never a good
Yeah.
I
moment.
think it's
I pulled over. I was in the car,
you're
and
the
I'm
one
like,
that's saying that. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, oh no, what? One more thing about marriage is that I had thought was, my career was hard. It took a lot out of me to train. And so that was my hard thing. And maybe hers was to be the homemaker. And we had talked about that, when we first got married. What I've come to discover is there's a much better way to do that. That's more fair, that's more equitable. Just if you do it, it deepens your relationship. And I think our marriage went from, but fairly superficial in what we talked about, what we did. And it was more,
It was like performing marriage.
yeah,
More
that's a good
transactional.
way to put it.
Transactional.
Yeah.
Like I do this, you do that.
Transactional.
You
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Right.
perfect.
And just keep our roles. But I've kind of, as we've talked more, it's like, well, wait a second, let's divvy up the responsibilities here. Her time is just as equal as mine. And we should be maybe not necessarily equal, but equitable in our efforts in our marriage, and to run a household and to raise a family and do all the things that we need to do. And so that's our process right now that we've worked on really, really hard, and are continuing to work on it. And it's been 100% worth it.
Yeah, it's amazing because I think when we were talking to Kendra and we were talking about doing a podcast, this relationship that you have, a marriage, being in this high stress employment, high visible employment, high wage earning employment, kind of exacerbates this situation that you're talking about of equality. And we love to talk about the 2 buckets of marriage.
Well, that's it's going to go.
And I know Amy's about to ready to tell you about the 2 buckets of marriage, because it's really important, right? There's the domestic bucket of marriage and there's the erotic bucket of marriage. And you have to have both of them. And today we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the domestic bucket of marriage and how we work better in this area. I completely failed at this. I didn't have to be a surgeon to fail at this. I was just a husband to fail at this. And I think most of my husbands are out here. But the situation you're all in kind of highlights this
It
issue.
exposes
It exposes it more. Yeah. And it shows
places
it.
some more pressure on it.
what we need to do. And so
Absolutely.
we had a great conversation with Kendra about some of the stuff that she's worked on to help understand how we work in this domestic bucket.
So just a quick refresh. Domestic bucket is the part of our lives or our marriage that we focus on the structure, on the organization, on the tasks, on the responsibilities, on taking care of our home and ourselves. It's the part focused more on friendship and reliability and responsibility, communication, all of which are extraordinarily crucial. And what helps the domestic bucket thrive is very different from what helps the erotic bucket of marriage thrive. The erotic bucket of marriage is not based on goals, is not based on outcome, is a space of being, not doing, is unrelated to tasks, is far more flexible, open, is more about expression than action. And so often in our podcast, we're talking more about that erotic, but we also don't want to eliminate the domestic because they reinforce each other, right?
Mhm.
For
You
sure.
need both. And if the domestic bucket isn't working well, it impacts the erotic. And if the erotic isn't working well, it impacts the domestic. So it's a balance between both. And so we really wanted to give some time to maybe some ways to approach this domestic side of marriage that is equally important. And without it, there can be resentments and hurts and more transactional, like you talked about, or more shallow, can lack the depth that actually allows you to move into the erotic.
Mhm.
So Kendra shared this book with me. And Kendra, if you want to take a minute and just describe it, give the name of the author and kind of what it's about, that would be awesome.
Sure. I can't remember the subtitle, but it is Fair Play by Eve Rodsky. And it was introduced to me a couple of years ago. And it really puts language to the domestic bucket. She describes, her experience and her family of, I think at the time she was a working mother. And it's like, how are all of these things going to get done? Because they all live in my head. And I look at my partner and you have this great existence because you're free from having to think of all of these things. And so she created a system whereby all of the invisible work is made visible. And she has some key components to that, one of which, and this is one that was maybe harder for me than for him, was really embodying that all time is created equally, that his time, even though he's getting paid and paid well for his time, and he's, saving people's lives, he's doing very forward-facing work that has an impact in the greater community, that the work that I was doing, even though I wasn't leaving my home, I was, serving in my church, I was serving my family here, I was serving my extended family, friends, all of these things that were not as visible and don't get paid, but consumed a lot of energy. And that's kind of where I fell into maybe a little bit of a trap, or I fell down the hole. It's like I'm doing all of the work. And, serving is supposed to be our highest and greatest calling. And it's supposed to feel so good when we serve others. And I'm like, this really just doesn't feel good. I feel like I'm being taken for granted. I feel like I'm being taken advantage of by my husband, by my kids, by my church. Like I just feel completely exploited here. And, Adrian is a great husband. He would give lots of compliments and thank you for doing such and such. And, it's like, that's just not enough. So lip service wasn't cutting it. And that book really gave some excellent language for how to address that and to really, and I think we've seen this on social media and elsewhere, a real emphasis on what the mental load and the emotional load is that, culminates in invisible labor that usually fall to a lot of women. And I think deprives us from entering that erotic bucket because we are so
Absolutely.
depleted from the other.
Yes, 100%.
It's very interesting. I think you put a point here. And this concept, when we started talking about it, made me really excited when you said every minute is made the same.
Created equal.
God created every minute equal. There's not one that's more
Yeah.
important than the other. And we get to decide how we spend it, but whether you're staying at home and taking care of the family or you're going and saving people's lives, those are important things. And it came to light. We were coaching in a group coaching just last night. And we were going through this, and Amy and I were coaching together, and we were trying to figure this out. We were pulling we like to call them threads, trailheads of threads. When you're coaching a couple, you start getting these inklings because you heard them before, like, oh, I think there's something there. So let's play with that and see. And we kept on pulling these threads, and they weren't going anywhere. And I was like looking at Amy like, I think there's something there, but
I feel something there.
they're
but,
new.
Like, no, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it.
Keep going.
We keep going. So with 1 minute left, in our coaching call, I'm like, I'm going to take a left-hand turn.
Yeah.
And Amy goes, you got 1 minute to do this. We were on the call for another 30 minutes, by the way, after that.
Uh-huh.
But I asked the wife that simple question. Where do you derive your value? Why do you feel like you're a burden? I could feel her in this. And she just shared exactly what you said. I don't make any money.
Mm.
And my husband's out there making all this money, and I don't want to burn him anymore because he has all these things he's doing.
He's more important.
He's more important. Yeah.
Therefore, I need to protect him. Therefore, I need to do everything at home. And therefore, it's all on me.
Yeah. So she walked right into the invisible trap that we had set there. We didn't really set a trap, but it was interesting because we were able to dig in this conversation and really start talking about every minute is created equal, and really helping her see that she has value and worth in what she does. I said something silly, but I still think it's the truth. I said, your husband can hire you to do everything, including sex, but you probably don't want to do that, right? So you can hire someone else, right? We probably want to avoid that. There is a value to everything you're doing. You don't want to probably go add that up because you'll say, well, my value is less than your value. But there is a value to the things you're doing, way more than you even understand.
Yeah. I know for myself and in my community, because of that disparity, we tend to overfunction. And so
Yes.
it's like, how can I match that value? And so by trying to match it, I'm burning myself out because I'm just trying to do everything for everybody, and I'm trying to keep everybody happy. And it's like, this is a losing proposition.
Yes.
Yeah, the aha that came to me in that moment, because she said that very thing, was the paradox she was living in. So she was living in this paradox, like, I have all these things, I'm burdened, I can't do them all, but the only thing that brings me value are these things.
Mm-hmm.
So if I hand them off to someone else, that means I've failed and I have no value. So it's this great paradox that I see wives and mothers in, right? Where it's overwhelming and it's burdening, but that's where they're deriving their value from. And so if they split it out, that says something about their value. And it was a great paradox. I could see that just pulling on her and the way she lived. And we lived this, right? Amy, we lived the same thing.
Yes.
And it was really detaching that value to all those things that helped the first step, right?
Right. And to allow there to be more equity. And like the husband in this coaching call was saying, just give me a list. I'll do whatever you want. And that's where we're like, it's not about the list, because then someone still owns it. And so that's what I think one thing that this book, Fair Play, does really well is showing that behind every task in a home, there is a conception, there is planning, and there is execution. There are lots of parts. It's not just making the dinner. It's who planned the meals and went through the inventory of what's needed and what's not needed and who needs what, and then who went to the store or ordered it online and then put it away and then brought those all out and then made the dinner, right? All of that conception, planning, and execution is all one part. And to just be handing off lists isn't actually...
If I'm here to help, that means that,
right, isn't actually taking ownership and accountability. And this husband was more than willing to, but also the wife wasn't willing to let go. And so part of the major thing here is that both spouses come to this fair play table of tasks and domestic duty saying, okay, we're here together. This isn't a measure of our worth or our goodness, but we're in this together, and we're going to see what we can do here.
I really think that's the beauty of the book, is just it prompts that conversation. It's like, okay, I have to expose everything that I'm doing, all the things that I'm thinking about, all of these tasks. I have to lay it out and I have to expose it for us. And then we have some conversations about it, some of which can be uncomfortable, pressuring in a good way, the good kind of pressure, the pressure that helps us grow and expand. But it brings up a lot of stuff to work on.
Well, and you mentioned something too. You use the word help. And I remember in our vocabulary, this is years ago, but it would be something like, hey, what can I do to help? In other words, I want to take some of your role off of you, versus the bigger mind shift, the paradigm shift, however you want to do, step out of the forest for the trees and say, what do we value? What are our roles, so to speak, and our responsibilities?
And by the way, we probably are all doing it. The husband's probably doing it so they can get laid. That's why they're probably doing it, right? Like they're like,
Well, let's be
hey, I'm doing the
honest.
dishes, babe. Are you hot? Ready? Are you ready to go?
Well, I think that's part of the progression,
Yeah.
like the baby steps to get there. And I think we've had moments that have been like that too, that have been certainly focused on, well, look what I've done for you.
Yeah. Can I get my
And
attaboy now?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
We,
true,
you
it's
know,
transactional.
it becomes transactional. I mean, we talk about this. We had a car ride where before we hadn't read the book, but we had to go through this. And every other time I said, well, whatever, Amy, I'm busy working.
You literally said, I made the money.
Yeah. Which was not, by the way, don't do that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
I did that so I could tell you all not to do that. So don't do that. This time Amy was like, nope, I'm going to stand my ground. And we had quite the car ride home. It was a couple hour car ride home that we had this conversation.
Several moments of we need to pause and regulate.
Yeah. That's bringing up a lot of emotions in me. Let me think about what's happening inside. But it really
How perfect
can
to do it
be
on a car
touchy.
ride.
Yeah, because you can't get away from each other at that point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it
We've
brings
had
up
many a
that
car
thing
ride,
you have
by
to
the way.
talk. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very great place.
And it brings up emotional baggage on both sides, right? There is emotional baggage on both sides. And most men that are good husbands, they want to be equitable. They want to be able to work, but they also have their own struggles with their time and their energy and what they're putting it into. So I love how you said this, Kendra, like you're just putting it all on the table. Let's just put it all on the table and talk about it in a fair way. Talk about how we can be partners instead of helping each other.
Well, and Eve Rodsky in the book, I mean, she talks about how just absolutely enlightening it was that when she started writing down all the stuff that she did,
Her get
not only
shit
was
done.
it like a blast to her to look at, but to her husband kind of, dumbstruck and going, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah. And it is kind of overwhelming to do that. So I like that she provides the cards. She has like 100 cards that you can get on her Fair Play website and print them out, or they're, in the book. And she's divided up into categories of like home and outside of the home and caregiving. The magic one I thought was an interesting title. Magic dealing with birthdays, holidays, gifts, maybe
Tooth fairy.
religious ceremonies.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those. I just thought that was like, oh, that's an interesting way to classify that. And then an even more interesting one was the unicorn time.
Yes.
Not self-care, not about just, an interest, but a unicorn time is about keeping that passion and that interest alive, permission to be interesting and interested.
It's really the erotic bucket. It's the really erotic
Mhm.
portion of your own life. When we talk, because erotic has both, right? There's the sexual meaning of it that a lot of people think the red light district, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the life-giving
Eros.
energy that brings us life. And there is that partnership in the sexual side of it, but there is regular, just what gives you life, what brings you joy. And we lose all that. I really thought it was interesting how they talk about the bait and switch, right? You can get into a marriage and 10 years later, you look at your spouse, you're like, that's not the person I married, right? They don't have any of the vibrancy and the love and the life that they had because we've all sacrificed to make the marriage and the family work. And so
Yeah.
it really is giving us this unicorn time, which is to find the thing that brings us life and brings us back to who we were before we got put into this place where all of our time was
Yeah,
checked
I
off the
think
box for.
that's still something that we struggle with to some extent. And I know for myself, it is, you need to claim that space and do something with it. But it's like so much easier to work on something else. And same thing for you. Like you've picked up some hobbies and picked up some things that you're interested in, but actually setting aside the time to do it, it's just like, oh, I'll work some more, or I'll do something else. So even though it sounds delightful, it is actually really hard to prioritize that and to claim it and to use it. We all want it, but it's a little scary to put down
actually
the work
allow
and to
it.
do it, to allow it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well,
to
and
give
then
yourself permission.
Mhm.
Yeah, I came to discover that I think a couple of years ago when I was literally working most of the year with very little time off, and I'd go 28-day stretches where I was working every day, and I was a bear. I was just a jerk. And Kendra was the one who was like, look, you need to do something. And, the Judeo-Christian world celebrates the Sabbath, and the Sabbath isn't just something to, do something 1/7 of the time. It's a principle that I think that whether you believe in it as a Christian principle or not, we need that as humans. And not only that, but it's the sharpen the saw principle of you take that time, you're going to be better at everything else the rest of the time. And so, yeah, I developed a few habits that are some fun things to do, and it's made a world of difference, even if
I
just
love
thinking
that.
about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Go buy a horse. You got to keep it alive.
Yeah.
Horses.
Yeah.
No, horses.
You can't not
Much
do
smaller, much smaller.
it.
So I'm curious, as the two of you went through her maybe system or put everything on the table and started to seek some more equity in your marriage, what were the challenges? What were the benefits? What did that kind of look like for you? Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
I would say it started with me when I just realized how overwhelmed she was. And I think I found an article about peer marriage, and it's in Psychology Today. And the author talks about how you divide, it's the principles of fair play, but it talks about all kinds of different benefits. And we found those true. It was difficult for me because, well, in one sense, I've worked hard my entire life, almost to a fault. And so if I'm not doing something, I should be doing something else, kind of like Kendra said. But it was shifting my paradigm, number one. That was really hard, to step back and say, here's what really needs to happen. But then finding ways to do that. And that's when the fair play type things came in. I think the benefits are just a deeper relationship together. We're closer. I think we feel more like a team. We're better friends. And I think that erotic bucket, for sure, there's a big link to that. I think that's deepened for us greatly, I think. We'll see if she agrees, but and we can just sit and be comfortable. And the biggest thing for me, though, too, I think there was always this underlying sense of guilt that I could tell there was something going on, but I couldn't put my finger on it, like it's something I wasn't doing. And I describe myself as, we have 5 kids. I describe myself as the 6th kid for a while. And that was in the past because I was just like, I would just let her take the responsibility of so much.
Yeah.
And when I kind of manned up and just said, no, there's certain things that I absolutely need to do, I felt better about myself. I felt more self-confident. And I think
More
that came across to
self-respect.
Kendra. Yeah, absolutely. And that made a huge difference, I think, at least with my feeling towards her. But, and it's just gotten better. It's just so much better in many ways.
I'm going to correct the record, though, because I wouldn't say that I was overwhelmed as much as I was just unfulfilled. Like, we're married and we're going through the process of being married, but this is a drag.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't fulfilling for me. This isn't the idea of marriage that I had. And to know that there was something else that was available to us, it's like, that's what I want. And so it really was at one moment just kind of a line in the sand. Like, I'm going to invite you into this type of relationship that I want, and you can come with me, which I'd like for you to come with me, but that's where I'm going. So come along, or we should do something different. And in that same vein, when I think about kind of the cards, because our time available, there is such a disparity. We will not divide these cards equally. We accept that. We know that. We don't even try to do that. But what we do is we have divided them in a way that makes use of his strengths, that make use of mine, and then we negotiate on the other ones. I will, for me personally, and maybe some of your listeners too, he has taken the card for like our marriage, romance, date. Like, that's him. I don't do it. I don't plan dates. I don't plan our overnight trips. I'm not involved. He'll send me a text. Are you available for dinner on Thursday? Like, he's asking me out on a date, and I will say yes or no. but he's in charge of that. And so I feel in some sense a relief. Like I'm not trying to figure out what we're going to do. Like I'm doing a lot of other mental gymnastics. And so for him to have been able to take in that part on entirely, it's like, okay, one of the things we don't do well, and we know that historically, because again, the type of person he is and the type of person that I am, we could work all day, every day. We don't know how to have fun. So like making ourselves have fun. And then, like I said, putting him,
Adding the
The
magic
having
fun
him-
card.
yeah, it's like, this is how I want my relationship to function. I do want you to be in the role of pursuer because I don't want to be the one working at home all day and then planning the dates for us. And it's like, no, this is what helps us feel a little more balanced. It's like, this was your role traditionally before we
Yeah.
got married. So let's give it back to you as we move forward.
Kendra, I'm interested if you can go in a little bit about how did you decide that it was okay to get rid of some of these tasks? Was there a tie to your worth at one time? And did you have to go through that process of, if I'm not doing this, that there's a lack of worth here? Or were you just so fed up at the time, you're like, I'm done because this is not the marriage I want? Like, what did that look like?
You know,
Like I should feel fulfilled, right? That's what
Yeah,
I see a lot
there-
of them.
there's
They
always that pull, like, I
feel
should.
fulfilling.
yes,
Yeah.
on paper we had a great marriage, but I think ultimately it came to life might be easier if I were doing this by myself because I'm having to manage all of
The
these
mental
things
load,
and I'm
yeah.
having to manage you. And so how can I make my life easier here? And in some ways it's like if I were by myself and I didn't have to worry about you, that would make my life easier. And then I went, that's not a marriage.
Yeah.
That is a
Interesting.
completely different kind of relationship. And that's not one that I want to be part of. And so something has to change here. So my life is not made easier when you're not there.
Right.
That's a
Interesting. I mean,
problem.
that is so true. Like, that is a sign. Like, if your spouse goes away and you're like, whew, that's probably something to think about, right?
That you're
And it's not
managing
because he
them
was
and
adding
feeling that.
anything necessarily. It's just that it was hard all the time. And then I have to also worry about you. And are we having sex enough? And are you happy? And,
It
okay,
adds
well, maybe it
another
would be easier if
variable.
we just removed that entirely and I could just take on this. And so we had, like I said, this has been a process over several years. And we recognize that this is an ongoing process, that's part of progression, that we,
Yep.
there is no arrival. I mean, maybe when we die, but until then, this requires an
probably
immense
not.
amount of intention and work and dedication. And we will always be finding new things we have to work on.
I think you said something that's so important to highlight, and we saw this in our coaching the other night, right? We get into this marriage and we have this concept, and a lot of it's culturally bound, right? That our job is to take care of the emotions and help the other person be happy. I was told, like, you need to make Amy happy. That's your job.
Yeah. Happy wife,
And
happy
you own
life.
that. That's right. That's the funny saying. And I think what you said is so important. We spend so much time managing each other. And in this coaching last night, they were doing it both. Like, she was managing his emotions and he was managing her emotions. And I'm like, get out of each other's backyards. Like, you don't belong there. Like,
Yeah.
no, Matt, you got to manage yourself. And I think that was key to what you said is, hey, we're two separate people, but to have a true intimate relationship, we have to be two whole people and allow the other person to be a whole person. Know that there's impact when we're together and that we have impact on each other, but that we're two complete people and we're not trying to manage each other. And that's so important.
Well, there's an author named David Schnarch, and he talks about the term of differentiation. And
Yep.
at first, I really, my bristles were just high because I thought that's what I saw my role as, is keep her happy, and then I'd be happy. No, it's no, you like you said, you have to be happy with yourself first and respect yourself. And then there's this amazing thing that happens that you're much more attractive to her than you were.
Yeah.
And that was a great thing. So I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was a great thing. But again, I don't want to give anyone the impression that that's easy either. Just,
No.
I remember when we were kind of going through this and it was like, okay, well, I don't want to say you abandon yourself in a sense, but the pendulum kind of swung where it was all
Yes.
me and the family. And then it kind of swung the other way.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, friends and running group. And I'm doing all these other things, but now I'm not paying any attention to my wife. I'm trying to be my own person. And so trying to find like the right balance there where it's not, but you're not doing it in a way that harms another person.
I like to explain, like, you're never going to wake up one day and be differentiated. Like, you're never going to sit in the middle. That's not an arrival. And what we found is, because we talk about this with our podcast all the time, it's the toxic independence on one side and the enmeshment on the other side. Well, you can't, you're so enmeshed you have to be, or you're like you said, he swung the other way. He's like, I'm going to go take care of myself and I don't really care. And that's a usual normal thing. When you found a husband that finds that he's so enmeshed, or a partner finds they're so enmeshed, their first step is to kind of go towards toxic independent. And I've had to coach people to like, I know it's bad, but I got to go there for a little bit and figure out what that side is. And what we, just like you said, a pendulum, what I talk about is that we'll continue to swing. You'll never stay in the middle. But what changes when you realize what's going on in your marriage is you're able to recognize it and get back faster, right?
Yep.
Like, oh, that feels toxic independent. I don't want to be there. I want to be with you. Or that feels enmeshed. What's going on? I don't want to be there. And so we still mess up in all the same ways, and we still do all the stupid stuff that we did before. We just kind of do it faster.
Yes,
It's like,
I would agree.
so that we can get back to the middle.
Super faster.
Yeah, so it's hard.
It kind of gives you the direction, right?
Yeah.
You recognize what is toxic and what is enmeshed. And so as you move towards enmeshed, you're like, oh, heading the wrong way. Okay, let's direct us back towards that differentiation. Or as you lean out towards toxic, you redirect towards that differentiation. And it's like adjustments, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
as if you were driving or flying or however, you know, you're adjusting according to what's happening around you.
I found something that was really, really important for me and eye-opening, and kind of the key to that was whenever I would do something, I would ask, what's my intention? Am I just trying to get validation from her? Am I trying to look good so that she'll like me? That type of a thing. Or no, do I truly, or am I trying to get something out of her, get her to go to sleep, go to bed with me, things like that. It was, instead of that, it was, no, I like her. She's working hard. I'm going to rub her back, not because I'm trying to get something out of it, but I just want to comfort her. Or I would do things because I didn't do the dishes just because of the reasons we've talked about. It's, no, the dishes need to be done. What's my intention? And as my intention became better, my self-respect grew, and things worked a whole lot better. And she's amazing at sensing
Wives
intention.
can track you. If you think that you can hide a husband,
Intention trackers.
they like have this radar,
Yeah.
like, oh, you're trying to get laid, you're trying to get
Yeah.
someone, like they can track it. So if you think you're faking them, then you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and absolutely. And there's still times though that I kind of go, hey, I promise I am not late or anything like that. I'm just trying to just do something, and I'm not.
Right.
If you don't see it,
Well,
fine,
the pattern's so old. How many years did you spend in that pattern, right? And so
Oh, a lot.
there is a
Long
period of time
yeah,
when you're still questioning, is this real?
absolutely,
Is this real?
absolutely.
Are you really doing this just
Is
because
this
you want to be a
genuine?
part of it? Is this genuine? And
Yeah.
I think you question yourself as much as you question your partner as you go through that transition too.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, Greg and I were like working on this, and we did sort out some things, and maybe we've had these conversations, but in different ways. I think Eve's Rodsky's, did I say that right?
Rodsky. I call her
Rodsky.
Rodsky.
Eve, thank you. Eve Rodsky's, she has very like set plan, and it was almost a little bit overwhelming to me, if I'm honest. I was like, oh my goodness, that's quite the
Complex.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in its thoroughness, it's always also showing all of the layers that you're navigating to actually create, a structure that works. But where Greg and I got a little stuck, and maybe you can help us with this, is we often split between the conception, planning, and execution. Like one of us is doing one part and the other is doing another. And so we wonder if you've found ways that
It's against the rules.
I know it's against the rules, but that's why I'm asking. Like, we found in just kind of going through this, we do that a lot. And she's kind of like, no, own it the whole way. And so we're trying to kind of wrap our minds around what that might look like.
Yeah. All I'm going to say is I think the book really is the ideal, and then you adapt and make it your own, just like with any other principle that you learn. It's like, how can I apply that in my life? And so if you take all of it and you use all of it, great. If you take some of it and it helps, great. And then it's an evolution. We can add things. We can have that discussion. But I'm thinking like even tonight we have somebody coming over for dinner. I knew what we were going to have for dinner, but he went to the grocery store on his way home and picked it up. It's like, so there are lots of things that I think we share, probably more than we realize. But yeah, we pick the pieces that work for us.
Was it just the burden of having it on the table was the biggest win, do you think?
Yeah, I think it was the invisibility part of it. The fact that it was, I don't know that you ever did this. Or maybe I blocked it out of my memory. But I do remember like
he'll send you
having,
up.
yeah, I know, having little kids, and he'd come home from work and, the house is a mess, kids are crying, I'm exhausted. And I would tell him, I don't know what I did all day. Like, I feel like
Yes.
if there was a list, maybe one thing got crossed off on the list, but 10 hours or more have passed. And I can't tell you what I did, what I was. Now I know I was exhausted because having little kids is exhausting by itself. I'm comforting somebody, I'm getting somebody a snack, I'm helping potty train somebody. Like, those are all things that you can't really see. And so I think just for us having that discussion around what does it take to run our family with your job, with my job, with 5 kids, with now 2 adults at college and these kids at home that are all growing and changing at different rates. And like, what does that mean? And are we doing this together, or have I been assigned the person who's going to take care of this part of our life and you're going to go make money? And that's the piece that just didn't feel good. It's like this separation of that's your job to make money and this is my job to be a servant in our home, or to do all of the
A way to put it there.
emotionally heavy, unpaid labor. Like, this doesn't feel right
Right.
to me. And so
Yep.
I think the beauty for us has just been that conversation, laying it all out, making everything invisible visible. And then we do have some defined tasks that we see through completion to execution, the planning, the whole bit. And then we share the rest. And we've got children, like we even delegate some of that too as well.
Yep.
Like, we're
Which
a
is
family.
really good for
Oh, I thought you were delegating
family
the
has
children.
to run.
You're like, no, you delegate the task to the children. Okay, gotcha.
Well,
Don't
some of them
delegate
do
to
get the tasks. I mean, quite honestly, I think that's like the next step. And we've started moving in that direction. It's like, this is what it takes to make our family run.
Yeah, you need to be part of
And
this.
you can be part of this. And I mean, sometimes that looks like chores. Sometimes that looks like, our daughter driving other people to school or to their activities. And so, and these aren't even set in stone. It's like 1 week it might look like this, and another week it might look a little bit different. And then there's some things that never change.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I do want to say too, I'm thinking of, we're kind of talking about the she fault parent, that it's all on the wife. And that does
Yeah.
happen a lot. But I also, in the last week, I've coached 2 men who are the he fault parent or the
Mhm.
default parent at home. And they are also in the same, bucket. Whoever is the default parent is carrying that mental load of invisible work. So whoever
Yeah.
that may be in the marriage, it's part of being willing to open that bucket and say, okay, here's what's going on behind the scenes that's completely invisible. And how can we partner instead of divide?
Yep.
And that partnership then allows for more entrance into the erotic too, because you don't feel like you're alone. You don't feel like exhausted, overwhelmed, burned out. And it can go either way, right?
Mhm.
And there's more understanding of what is actually happening. And I also love the ability to say no, to also carve out time to be a human being, or for this unicorn space to say, okay, what are we taking off the table? I see so many families that I coach that have said yes to everything.
Mhm.
And they're wondering, like, where did our time go? Why can't we ever even, be in the same place at the same time? And it's because the children and their activities or maybe interests, which are important, but there can be room for their interests and yours, like to say no to some of those, or to say no to things that don't work within the realms or, the structure of your family. And that's a really important power.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a principle I heard. It was Brene Brown, and it was on a podcast, and I don't remember who she was. It might have been Lewis Howe. She was talking about a family-centric home, how sometimes you have parent-centric homes, other times you have kid-centric homes, and then there's a family-centric home. And for a while, I think we kind of ran off of, everything was centered
It was
around him.
dog-centric home.
Doctor-centric home.
That's right. Everything we did was to make sure that he was all right. And I've seen other families where it's all about the kids and the parents are completely neglected. But she pointed out that when you have a family-centric home, every decision is made in what is in the best interest of the family. And I think between fair play and that concept of really thinking about Like saying yes to this, how does that impact every member of my family? And is that a price I'm willing to pay? Or saying
Yes.
no to this, what do I get back? Or does that have impacts? And looking at every single member and recognizing that every member has wants, needs, desires, and how as a family can we work together to fulfill those? And I think that environment of just shared, partnership between a spouse and then among a family, that we are all here to help each member of a family get to the destination that they want to go to. And sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice a little bit. And sometimes you're going to have to make a decision that doesn't benefit you as much as it might benefit somebody else. But we're doing this for the good of the family because every person in our family matters.
Let me say this to the moms. Sometimes you're going to have to be the one that gets
Yes.
and not always sacrifice, because that's where I find mostly, right? They'll just be sacrificing.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
what a wonderful story that y'all telling us here. And we really, really appreciate you coming on to talk about this. It's really important to us. It was a mess that we had to go clean up and figure out. We didn't have fair play. I wish we did.
I know.
It would have been very,
useful.
very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So
Giving out as
we
wedding
will-
gifts.
yeah, we're definitely going to do that. I think in the end, what I want to warn some of the couples for, especially maybe my male counterparts here, is it's going to be a hit to the ego a little bit, right? And there's going to be moments you're going to cringe when you realize what you played into. And my first response, like we said, was the bad response. I gave you an example of what not to do. So don't do that. Don't take the stance of I'm the earner, go away and do your thing. Don't do that. Bad. But remember that ego needs to be checked in. And we find this all the time in coaching. When you want to be a true partner, be differentiated, be in this, both in the domestic and the erotic bucket, you've got to love your spouse more than your ego. And we find that all the time where people love their ego more than their spouse, and they're not willing to look at themselves in a way that puts them in a shady light. And this will, when you start doing this,
It's going to expose
going to
something.
expose some things that you're not comfortable with, for sure.
Necessary
For your
exposure.
benefit. Yes,
Necessary.
exactly. Necessary exposure. Yeah. So Kendra, if people want to find you or listen to you, where can they do that?
Sure. I've got a podcast. It's called Supporting Physician Spouses, and we're on Instagram at Supporting Physician Spouses. And then my coaching page is on Instagram at Kendra_itgetsbetternow. And my website is www.itgetsbetternow.com.
And do you also support spouses that maybe not just in the physician's field, but maybe in other demanding careers, no matter, or maybe both spouses are in them? Like, do you also provide support for that as well?
No, I'm very protective of my community. So no, I only
Doctors
coach
and
those
that's
that are
it.
married to physician spouses. Yeah.
I will say though, something that's very important, I think, is, there's many careers, or at least several, professional, however you want to look at it, where they model the physician, paradigm where you work really hard at first, at least, and plenty of hours, and then you still have a demanding career. So the principles she teaches are wonderful. And I think they apply to many different people. You just take the word physician out and put lawyer, accountant, engineer,
yeah.
Whatever, and you'll still find principles that will really, really help you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
sorry, I
think-
won't coach you.
Really?
No.
Hungry.
That's
I love
right.
you.
Highly.
You can say no, that's fine.
I
Yeah,
love that.
I think every partnership has that, right? Every marriage has that in some aspects. And
Yes.
like I said, at the very beginning, this dynamic of the physician and the spouse really heightens that, right? And shows
Yeah.
the blazing holes we have because of the demand. And we really appreciate that you've lived this experience. You're willing not to continue to live that experience and do something about it. But not only that, you're willing to help others. And how fun it is to have you on the podcast with us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we really
Well,
appreciate
it's always
your
fun.
time.
Thanks.
Anything else you want to say before we close?
Yeah. Thanks for a great double date.
Yeah, it was wonderful. All right, everyone. We appreciate you being on. Don't forget to go sign up for our free community. It's happening next week, right? This week.
Yes, it will happen the day
This week.
Tuesday. What month are we in? Tuesday, February 24th at 7:30 Central.
Go sign up. It's fun. There's nothing to bind you there. Just come and have fun. We appreciate it. And go like and subscribe to the podcast and visit us on linkforlifecoaching.com where there's a free console button. We'd love you to push that. We can chat with you. Until next time,
Keep undressing your intimacy.
bye-bye.